June 3rd, 2026, work session for the City Council of Gearhart is called to order. I'm Kerry Smith. You're Mark
McLaughlin, yes.
and Katie.
Katie Volpe.
Okay, sorry, I can barely.
That's
That's all right. This is Paulina, you know, Karen. This is
Dana.
Dana. That's Preston.
Hey, Preston, how you doing? I'm doing well, thanks.
All right. Are we not recording now?
Nope, we're all good.
Actually, we're not. Chad, you accidentally took the responsibility, so I can't switch it.
Okay, do I need to go back out?
Just give me a second, okay?
Yeah.
So this is what we do at the very beginning.
No worries.
So cute.
That's Eric's copy. And it's even more cute in person.
Okay, it switched.
Okay, we're good to go.
Good. All right, so how do you guys want to proceed with? Do you want to tell us?
Oh, yeah, I can happily orient everybody.
Okay, that would be good if you oriented us because I'm disoriented.
Yeah, no worries. Again, my name is Mark McLaughlin. I'm the Conservation Director at Land Services, and I have Kitty Volpe here, our Executive Director. And so the goal of this work session, and first I want to thank everyone here for providing this opportunity. It's kind of twofold. One, I know I presented about this a number of months ago as well. And so there's the 2nd Street property here in Gearhart that we recently acquired and are hoping to be able to transfer to the city as well. In addition to that, there's a hope that we can also build a partnership to help the city protect additional lands along Neocoxie Creek in the future, should those opportunities arise. And so I would plan to go through my slide deck that I have here, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you look through it and have any. But I can also touch base on some topics on just the importance of protecting Neocoxie Creek, the riparian lands, and why we think a partnership with the city would be helpful if opportunities, like I said, arise to potentially protect and conserve additional properties along the creek.
Okay. That'd be great. I'm going to leave it in your part because North Coast Land Conservancy, I don't know much about. And what you do and why you do it.
Yeah. I can provide some of that context. So yeah, we're a land trust established nearly 40 years ago, and we work from the city of Astoria down to Lincoln City in the Coast Range up to the coastal shores. And so we work to protect and manage lands within our service area with a variety of important habitat types. And we also do some additional work in facilitating land transactions for community groups that have co-benefits with protecting habitats that we want to see protected as well. So some examples of those facilitations also might include community partnerships with cities to protect the drinking water sources and the like. And so we can offer technical expertise in those types of arrangements.
Great.
And so initially I can kind of bring us back to the 2nd Street property because it's a unique one within kind of our program. There was a community effort to try and protect those properties. And then we initially had a letter from you indicating that the city would be interested in accepting that property. And so that was also factored into our ability to be involved in a project like that. It's typically not something we would be outright wanting to acquire just due to its size and kind of position within a greater kind of community. We're typically working on kind of larger scale connectivity of established reserves.
Right. Okay. So you're not You haven't worked inside a city limit, basically?
We do work inside city limits, but in this way where we're partnering with the city or maybe the Parks District or maybe with the Water District. And it's for goals beyond just the ecological. So we largely do nature preservation. And then when we're within city limits, we tend to want to partner with groups or the city themselves to help you all achieve those goals of open space benefits for the residents and neighbors, and that kind of thing. So it's sort of an additional layer, and the communities themselves tend to be the better owners and stewards of those lands in those situations, because you're the ones that are here. And it can contribute to kind of a bigger part of the benefit for your city itself.
Okay.
But you do own the Neocoxy Forest property from about Pine Ridge
Down
north.
You have
Ish.
pieces of land in Gearhart.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And those
I don't know
are,
if they understand.
they're not connected. I mean, they're in the city and we
Right.
don't,
You know,
you don't own those or anything. You own all that outright, right?
yes.
Okay, no partnership there. Just checking, making sure.
yes.
Okay.
Those were not city partnerships. They're also outside of city limits.
No, I don't think so.
So,
For the
Maybe when you bought them more.
going up into the Neocoxia North,
Yeah.
up into Surf Pines.
but
et
Shamrock
cetera.
Pines is it's certainly within the city limits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's my properties.
Mhm.
And then the Akasha Forest, I'm pretty sure that's in the city.
Yeah, it's
limits.
adjacent to the
reserve is
reserve, which is in
in the city.
Oh, right, on the
Mhm.
east
Yeah.
side there.
Mhm.
But the thing is, the reserve is on the west side.
Well, I understand, and so
Okay,
is
there's
the
a whole-
Neocoxy Forest.
There's a whole parcel that's owned by the Strike family. It's on the east side from the reserve.
Right, but there's also property that's owned by the Land Conservancy on the east side of the reserve.
Okay, let's,
And I didn't mean to say we have a black and white approach to it.
Right.
Just generally, it's a nice way to partner with cities when we're within city limits, right? You know, within residential areas, smaller parcels, because of the community benefits that they provide over and above the ecological benefits.
right, good.
I guess I would like more of a definition of what partnership means with that, what would be your obligations, what would be the city's obligations?
Yeah, I can speak to that. There's kind of some example draft language. Typically, they come in a form of a memorandum of agreement that we would get established, and we can negotiate what those terms are. But typically, in a partnership like that, we could offer any sort of technical expertise with evaluating properties, with prioritizing if there are certain properties that you would want to try and target in protection, or at least be available to target to protect those. And so we can offer due diligence review, environmental assessment review, technical expertise in the transaction aspect, the creation of donation agreements, all that kind of stuff. So just stuff that we typically are involved in throughout a project when we're trying to acquire or accept land. And so up until the point that it becomes like the city's property. So we can just help with whatever your needs would be along that path. Say there's a property that the landowners want to donate, and we have and only have always worked with willing landowners, right? So we're not out there trying to get property from people. It's always a partnership with the landowner as well. And so say there's a property within this corridor that somebody wants to donate, and then we would help facilitate that
Okay.
by providing any expertise and skills and needs that the city would want in evaluating that.
Okay, so So for example, Second Street property, let's say hypothetically, that property were to come back to the city after you have helped us do all of that, effort. What then is the city's obligation? What then is the city's risk? I mean, is there, would we have to maintain insurance on that property? What would be the rules? Are people allowed to walk on that property, or can they just stand at the edge of it and look in? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, those are all great questions, and those can always be kind of negotiated or determined, right? One thing that we would want if with a transfer of property back to the city would be some sort of level of protection. Typically, it could be in a form of like a deed restriction saying that this property will just need maintained as open natural space. And if you want to allow public access or anything like that, I think could be certainly viable. Wouldn't want necessarily maybe to cut down everything and make it like an open park, but maintaining natural values and a landscape that people can visit, but also observe, and just allowing the natural ecosystem services that open space can provide too.
So, wait, just to piggyback on that, so that property, to my recollection, it's already gotten a driveway built into it, or, it's cleared out to cut trees or survey or whatever they were doing. It seems like a natural place where a bench might go.
Yeah.
So somebody could sit there and contemplate.
Yeah.
Is that something that's okay?
Yeah.
As far as low risk,
I think something of a low passive recreation, something like that would be fine for a site like that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're not disturbing it more than it already has been disturbed. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and I should say it's not that we're in the business of keeping people off land. It's important for people to be able to visit these open spaces. I think there's maybe a conversation about how big is the area? Would it be worth having any sort of established trails or anything like that? But having something like a bench or observations area where people can see the creek or bird watch or immerse themselves in a forest, I think is certainly valuable.
Okay, great.
Maybe a little bit of explanatory statement about the property and why it's there and why it's preserved the way it is.
So would that be the normal process? Each piece of property, we would come together and we would establish what are the characteristics of this property that are unique that we want to protect, and how do we best do that? And to what extent do we allow the public to use the property that belongs to them, or protect it from, damage from public? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and another aspect also would be, say, if the landowner is wanting to donate the property to the city, what are their intentions, what are their wants and their goals in protecting the property too? Maybe they want to have a trail, maybe they don't. So those are also part of the conversations where we have an open dialogue with whoever's involved to see what the ultimate goals are and if you can come to agreement on everything.
So with any of the cities that you partner with now, do you have, for example, a commission or a group? Is there, somebody that from the community that has been identified other than the city council that makes those decisions with you? Because I would think that would be most appropriate for us not to. I mean, we have a role, and our role is to make rules and laws and whatnot for Gearhart, but we actually have breakout people that do work on things like this.
Yeah, there can certainly be a point of contact. Like when we're working with other communities, might be the general manager for that water district that we work with. So we're not working with the board all the time or very much at all.
Committee that oversaw it and determined.
Yeah. So, but then, you would have maybe your own internal process. So for, just working with one person from the city as a point person and going through that process, and then whatever the city actually needs to do to take the next steps.
Preston, you had something?
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe in what you guys are doing. Okay. My question is, since we have limited employees in the city, Who's gonna be responsible for maintenance?
Yeah, the long-term management and stewardship of the property, yes, would fall on the city.
Yeah, well,
There is, of course, opportunities potentially to, bring in community volunteers to help maybe go full IB or have some work session days. So, I mean, those are models that exist on our other properties as well that we manage, that we bring in volunteers to help with some of that upkeep when needed, going and coming down Scotch Room. That we don't have that here, but, there is maybe some IV or something like that. But a lot of the times, we have properties that we still visit and we still monitor and we still see what's happening, but we're not necessarily out there, pulling weeds every day or anything like that. It's kind of letting nature do that, of course.
that's gonna be a real sticking point with me.
Okay.
And I mean, originally I wrote down here, who's gonna keep paying the taxes,
Right.
right? And then I had a meeting with Chad. I mean, the taxes to the city were fairly minimal, but they have been paid ever since the city was incorporated,
Right.
and we've been getting the income off of that. And in today's world, the expenses going up and everything else like that. I mean, every time we can get a nickel,
Yeah,
that's just a nickel that we're not losing.
that is true. I guess I understand that fully, because if you're potentially taking properties off the tax roll, you would not have that source. I guess there's the other side of thinking about it is, yeah, some of the properties, I was looking at that they pay like $103.20 a year in total taxes, right? For property. So not a ton of money, but I think there's also the flip side of the ecological services and the values that bring of having kind of that open space maybe next door to a house potentially could inflate those property values more. So, I mean, it is a give and take, but I try to include in this, it's high level. So it's just looking at kind of habitat types generally. And so just running on all the undeveloped land that's along the Neocoxy, it's about 17 acres. And if you include the creek itself, it's about 20 acres of land. And running it through this ecosystems calculator, this organization called the Land Trust Alliance, it's the nationally accredited land trust organization. Running through that calculator, it's about $3 million a year in estimated ecosystem services that those undeveloped properties and the creek allow. So the creek itself is just about under $750,000. So yeah, it's a net of about $3 million calculated just for keeping land undeveloped.
Well, my big deal is,
That's not revenue or lost revenue. I'm sorry.
My big deal is maintenance. Our public works department is stretched to the max. Are you guys willing to step up and have your coalition come and maintain that piece of property?
I think that's something, that we could certainly look into about as part of a agreement with the city as part of the partnership, that maybe there's, opportunities for our volunteer crew to come out from time to time to help whenever there's needed. But
I'm glad to hear that, because if you guys aren't willing to step up and maintain it, you're going to rely on the city to maintain it.
I mean, ultimately, it would be in an example of if the city owns the property, it would ultimately be the city's responsibility. But what I'm saying is North Coast could have the potential to bring volunteers to help with any maintenance.
What you're asking us to do is now you guys have it, because you had a bunch of people put up the money in order to purchase the 2 lots or 3 lots. Okay?
2 lots.
Okay. And now what you're willing to do, what you want to do is to turn it over to the city. We've got enough parks in this town. Okay. And what I'm thinking about is the burden that it's going to put on the public works department as far as the maintenance goes. That's going to be really critical as far as my vote in doing this.
Yeah, that's understandable, that it is something that the city would have to factor.
But I don't need any more expense.
Yeah, I don't know what an expense would be in maintaining, taking care of that property. It's already in a pretty natural state. And it's not like I need to mow anything or there's no facilities to maintain. So I think so there's maybe some ivy that would need to get pulled from time to time, but I don't know, a lot of maintenance or upkeep that would be needed because you're preserving it as kind of a natural open space.
Yeah, but the ivy isn't natural.
Yeah.
That's why we wanna pull it.
Right, and
Excuse me?
That's why we wanna pull it, or cut it, or.
Well, I think that the people that came up with the money ought to be, to buy this property, ought to be the ones that maintain it.
well, Preston, that's a good idea, and maybe we should discuss that during our work session at the end of June.
Okay.
And we can move forward with.
So, can I just interject one thing?
Oh, I don't see why
Apropos to
not.
what Preston's saying. Two things. Number one, myself, Todd, and Robin Lane all cut pretty much all the ivy back off. We went in there as volunteers and pretty much cut it off. I mean, I don't think we hardly missed anything. So that's pretty well taken care of for a while. I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
often ivy has to be cut around here and,
It needs to be pulled. You need to get the roots out.
no, but you can cut it and it stops it from going off the tree for the time being. Nobody has the strength to pull out ivy roots. Nobody's gonna have.
Forest Park in Portland, they let that go, and now they've got a huge problem.
Right, so we're not letting it go, is what I'm saying. We pretty much beat that back last fall. The other thing is, I'm a land steward for both the Shamrock Pines property of the Land Conservancy and the Neocoxy Forest, which is east of the reserve. I'm the land steward for both of those, even though I'm not a very good one. But, and as far as maintenance goes, there's really not maintenance. I go in there, I look at the property, I walk the property, I might pick up a few pieces of trash. It takes an hour and a half, depending on which property you're talking about. But there's the only maintenance that the Land Conservancy has done on those properties is cut back the Scotch broom and a little bit of holly, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys jump in. But to my knowledge, there's really no Scotch broom over on Second Street. I don't think there's any there. So as far as the ongoing maintenance, it's not gonna be huge. There's not much maintenance that really has to be done. If a tree becomes a hazard tree, we'll probably have to go in and do something about it, right? And you guys, from what I read in here, you would prefer that it gets cut and that it gets left where it falls. So it doesn't have to be hauled out or cut up or anything like that. So we're limbed up, right? It doesn't have to be, none of that has to happen. So the maintenance is gonna be minimal, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So, and I know that this is early days for this kind of conversation, but I would think that along those lines, because this community sometimes has disputes, there are people who believe they know everything that needs to be known about what plants need to stay, and then there are other people that believe that they know, and they're not always the same thing, right? Not everybody agrees. So I think that if we were to have a successful partnership, we would have to establish right off the bat what could be removed without, a hue and cry, and what could, because somebody will challenge you if you remove something on a piece of property that wants the public hearing. So I think there would need to be clearly established rules. And then, we would have to designate, like, once a year, we have a cleanup day where, you try and gather 5 to 6 volunteers to go through and do what needs to be done, or at least a preliminary assessment, and then tackle it kind of thing. I don't think that you can just expect the property to stay there. And also, my biggest fear with the storms around here is the damage that they do to the trees. And then one of the trees falls on a house because we've allowed it to stay too long, we haven't removed anything because we're afraid because it's protected property. And then we end up with a problem that we have is our responsibility to fix in somebody's house, and we can't afford that. That would be my biggest concern about taking on responsibility for this property. So I don't know.
We have that same, issue with the properties that we own and almost every winter, approaching winter, we get a lot of phone calls and it's, the worry about the coming season. Oh, I'm worried about this tree. It's close to the edge. And so, yeah, that's definitely a real thing. I think it's probably something that the city isn't unfamiliar with dealing with. It's, you own public lands, you have neighbors, there's plenty of rules and tools around how to address that. There would be no rule on 2nd Street that you can't address a hazard tree. If it's deemed a hazard, we do the same thing, on our nature preserves. If it's deemed a hazard, we address it as a hazard. And so I think it's relatively simple that way. It's not an additional burden because it was acquired in this way. Now, just cutting it because somebody says they think it's a hazard, that's different than it being assessed as a hazard. So I think that there's just that area there, but that's usually a pretty easy thing to address. And that's how we go about it with our neighbor trees. The neighbor expresses a concern. We can sometimes tell that it's a perfectly healthy tree or that it wasn't on our property in the first place, or, we sort of can do some things like that. I would think that the city would, it'd be relatively easy. It's a small property. It doesn't have lots of different neighbors all abutting it. So there's not going to be a lot of different people having those kind of concerns. And so if a tree is diseased or it's dead or something like that, it would be easy to address.
I would be more comfortable if the Land Conservancy could maintain some sort of what's the right word? Consulting role in even whether it's annual maintenance or hazard tree. I mean, those are the two things I think of. I would just be more comfortable because I'm concerned about that. Oh no, you gotta leave the Scotch broom. Oh, you gotta leave the ivy or the holly or.
And the other problem that we have is, I don't know if you're aware, but we don't have a code enforcement person. We have a city administrator who's supposed to be doing city administrator duties that finds out that something was posted on Facebook 2 days after it occurred, rather than somebody calling him directly so he could go out and stop it when it's happening. And then it becomes a big hoopla, and the city is not doing its job, or it is, everybody's arguing, is angry at the city. And then somebody's suspicious that we have taken down a tree we shouldn't take down or whatnot. So I would feel more comfortable if we didn't put more responsibility on a city administrator who's not a tree expert to make those kinds of determinations. If there's somebody that you have that we could say that's the person that's going to decide for us what trees need to be removed, rather than it be one more thing that people are mad at the city about. You understand?
Yeah, we work with arborists in those situations.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the technical expertise of NCLC, we might be able to work up a management plan as well. Hey, if you have Scotch broom, this is how
Yeah.
we can look at this. Or if you have, this is what we all believe in should be handled with ivy. Because again, we did get into a lot of debate about whether or not Scotch broom was right for the beach. Leave it the way that it is. It's a nice fixer. If I, go to get our guys or somebody to go and start cutting Scotch broom, and then we end up that. But if we have a little management plan that helps us through that, that's where your expertise can help. And we can negotiate that before any decisions made as well.
If you have something in the example language agreement or anything like that, in 25 minutes, at 5 minutes to 6, I have to end this meeting because I have a special guest who's going to open our city council meeting, and I have to meet with her.
Okay,
I just wanted everyone to be, so if there's something that you want to get to, we'll try and keep the questions down and we'll go to a work session and talk about it amongst ourselves, because this is, it's now 5:32. So is there something you want to tell us about your example of an agreement language? Is that in your little?
in that packet, yeah, there's, so in the larger packet, in the facilitation framework that says example draft, it has the down arrows on it, that one. So that kind of shows a typical framework process on the front page. And then most of the rest of the document is just kind of a standard, not standard, but it's a typical memorandum of agreement, a typical facilitation agreement of what a partnership would be like, that spells out roles and responsibilities. And then the back page of that one there that you're holding, Mayor Smith, has kind of a scope of, an example scope of work of what responsibilities NCLC would have in the partnership, what potential roles the city would have in the partnership. And again, this is just an example graph. All of these things can be discussed, negotiated, modified where necessary. So yeah, there's some legalese in there, but it's an example of our typical agreements that we have when we're partnering with other communities and groups.
So this is you've used this on other cities.
We have, I don't know if we currently have an MOU with them. So we have some agreements with some special districts, some water districts. I think we're working on a few with a couple other municipalities.
Okay.
But this one was an example one that we have used in the past.
As an example, but not the finished product.
It was basically the finished product, and I put an example and changed some terms, included, city of Gearhart as opposed to city of blank, but yeah, so it's a pretty flushed out agreement.
Great.
But again, anything in there, there's nuance to everything, so would always be happy to discuss a particular point if you had questions on it. I know it's a lot in a short amount of time to try and discuss, but
yes, that's the big thing. That's why I figure we need to put it in with our other work session stuff, because this is like, for me, 2 days of reading and thinking.
yeah.
I guess if we could start though, you answered a lot of my questions.
Okay.
And like Preston said, I certainly support you. It's not that I don't support your goal. It's I'm trying to figure out how we can, find a good tipping point to where the city of Gearhart can afford to be part of that without, with the minimal resources that we have. But if we can find a way to do that, I would certainly support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be great for us to, because there's sort of two things in all of this. One is Second Street itself, and is there a way that we can sooner than later have the city of Gearhart feel good about welcoming this into their city ownership, and then, related to that, but separately, are you also interested in exploring this vision for protection of open space within the community, in which case we could be a very good partner to help you achieve that kind of thing for Gearhart. We have many, many supporters in Gearhart, and so certainly and we have staff who live here. We're not separate from Gearhart. It is also a part of our lives and our community, and so we experience, very regularly, just a whole lot of interest in this type of thing for the city, and we know that it's hard for cities to do alone, and so we hope that you hear it as an offer of support for something that is expressed as an interest and a desire amongst the community, and then together we can figure out how to get there. And we do have this whole niche expertise, and we can do a lot of stuff, and we also are a phone call away, and we're a community institution, so we'll be here. And we wouldn't ever want to go forward with something and then we don't just walk away. Even in the absence of formal agreements, you know, we do work parties with the city of Seaside from, you know, properties that they became the owners of decades ago. And that's because Seaside is in our community also, and the Neowana estuary is a beautiful thing to protect on the coast. And so I appreciate very much that you have to really consider risk. And I think that within that, we also can offer that considering opportunity and wonder for the community is a really good thing to weigh when we're doing it also. And so I think all of those things can be achieved. Well, I know they can. It's been done before. And it's hard to regret, you know, having protected places. It's usually after they're gone that you regret not protecting them. It's very true.
Well, I would just like to say that we owe you a huge debt of gratitude, because without the help that you and the organization gave us to allow people to donate to you all and have that be, you know, tax deductible donation and all the help that you gave on us. I'm deeply appreciative to you for that. So.
Do you have any questions about this?
I guess the one question I did have is about, sorry, it's kind of a process question, but just what would be the next steps within the city? What would be needed? Say there's this hypothetical, let's say there's, you know, momentum to first transfer the Second Street property. Just what would be the next steps in that? Is that a decision that, you know, the council needs to vote on? And what's that process like?
Well,
same with the facilitation agreement, just what the city process is and getting something like that established.
once we get a consensus from the council, and I believe we could do that maybe in July after our work session in June, because this is a lot of information.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be digested individually, and then we need to come together and talk about our questions about things. But if we do come to a consensus, it would be at the July meeting. And then what would happen is, I don't know how to proceed. I've never done this.
Yeah.
I would need some kind of direction from you guys and what we need to do. Do we need to have a team of 2 meeting with you and working out the logistics of what we're going to do and the timeline we're going to do it in? But that is what I envision happen. It's
That's helpful.
I would
Yeah.
have some research questions too, to give to staff, get some feedback before I want to talk about a consensus or anything. I want to know about the cost of, you know, what we're losing in taxes and what we'd be paying in insurance and some of those type of things.
Mhm. Well, it might be a little longer than July. I can't. I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
On so many things.
Yeah.
But the memorandum of understanding and the covenants and restrictions, those are the 2 documents that we need to kind of look through. I'm thinking since you gave to us pretty much everything in those documents is okay with you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So we just need to kind of decide, or is it okay with us, or where it's not,
yeah,
then we bring you in to talk.
Have our attorneys look it over.
yeah.
Right, legal
Yeah.
does have to look at it.
Yeah, and that's to be expected, and yeah, so the covenants and restrictions in that one is an example of, say, what could go along with Second Street when it's transferred in order to have some guarantee of protection of natural space. Separate from that, but aligned would be the facilitation agreement, which is the document. And that is how do you formalize a partnership? We have many unformalized partnerships that we still get a lot of stuff and work done and achieve, dual goals. So it's always, I think, helpful though too, to have a more formal agreement so everyone knows their roles and responsibilities and what the expectations are. Because even if you have that maybe as a conversation between two organizations, if you don't have to formalize, if a person leaves, maybe there's some, loss of institutional knowledge there. And so, but that wouldn't necessarily have to be that facilitation agreement wouldn't need to be completed, say, before Second Street.
Yeah, Second Street can be its own thing, and so that might be easier to prioritize and digest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in my,
The covenants, when you say Second Street, you're talking
Yeah.
about covenants.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
And
the
this could
concept
come
of
along
receiving
later.
it.
yeah, the concept of, is the city open to receive it? And would you be comfortable with, some restrictions on what can be done or not be done on property? So I think in my slide deck, because it was from many months ago, it mentions Second Street being a proof of concept for the facilitation agreement, but that was the first time I spoke, it was many months ago, so I think that the timing of things, it's kind of maybe flipped, where it's Second Street first and then an agreement can be made. So, sorry, I didn't catch that in my slide deck. I was looking through it before this afternoon and realized that that previous language was still in there.
And the exhibit B is kind of attached to this annual as like, this is what we're gonna do and this is what you're gonna do. It's
Yeah, the scope of work, yeah.
just an attachment.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great if people got their questions like to Chad, so that we can have the answers by the 29th when we meet again.
I agree.
That's a great idea.
So that we're not just coming up with that at the end of the month. We have a whole month to read this and think about it, and ask questions.
And we're
while
very
you're-
available for being asked questions along the way too. And so if that's helpful at all. And then would be curious of your question, if that's whatever you're comfortable with, but curious of your questions along the way also, even if we're not the one to answer it, but we're used to a variety of things coming up and we are very interested in being innovative or creative, so knowing what the concerns are helps us think about like, maybe if we looked at it this way, or we did this other thing, or we sought this resource that didn't come up in the work session. So I think, we, knowing that these are really, many things that could seem like barriers could be pretty easily resolved. Maybe I shouldn't say easy, but can be resolved. And that we'd be pretty committed to trying to figure that out with you guys too. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else with anything? Preston?
Nope.
Dana?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time here today, and just want to say thanks to Chad. We've been trying to schedule something for a number of months now, and it's always, I know it's hard to do that, so I just appreciate you all for the time here tonight, because everyone's busy. It's hard to get us all in one place, so thanks.
It is.
Yeah.
Great to see
I'll
you.
keep in touch with you and then you can disseminate information to wherever you are. And then as the questions come in, we'll talk about them and get ready for the next session.
Okay.
So do we want them to be at the work session?
No.
They do not come on the 20th.
No, they do not come on the 29th. This is going to be our work session on many different levels. And I don't want to bore you with it because I don't know which section it'd be in, first or the fifth. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm very interested in this. We have some reading and thinking to do.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea if this works and works as well as I think it will, continuing on with a partnership with you guys.
We hope that as well.
I like to see that land protected. I don't have my fingers crossed or anything. I just would like to.
Well, it seems like it's protected already.
All right, is there anything else? Then I'm gonna adjourn the work session. We have 13 minutes until the city council starts.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Be well.